interesting story, and she was on the show. She happened to mention to Sister Jenna that she would be in Washington soon, and Sister Jenna asked her if she would come to the museum and do a workshop, and that's how she landed here with us. And just to give you a little background, Noelle is an author, of course, nature and wildlife photographer. She has beautiful photography. Yeah, it's in her book, and she's going to do a book signing afterwards as well. But, and also if you go to her website and Facebook page, there's just some amazing photography there if you love wildlife and nature. It's just beautiful. And an interesting story to go with it, which she's going to share with you today. She's also an award-winning graphic designer and an advocate for nature and our power pollinators, which I'll let her explain that to you. And she believes in spiritual pollination and seeking the extraordinary within the ordinary. And we'd like to welcome our special guest, Noelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonia.
I just really wanted to be with her in this space because when we did the interview together, I appreciated her tone and her sense of presence, especially with the nature. But what I loved was how she collaborated the nature with life and how you can learn so much about yourself through nature. And perhaps one of the other areas that I'd like for Noelle to share on is our connection to God in nature and how that can resonate with our own being. And so I warmly welcome you to our beautiful little space of meditation. In itself, it is a nature space, but created by human nature in terms of man-made. And one of the nature aspects that I've always been curious to explore is the nature of our thoughts and how thoughts actually co-create our world around us and either repairs or breaks it down, supports it or destroys it. I believe it's the quality of our thinking, and it's our attitude towards the environment inside of our own bodies and outside of the body, that whole inner ability to use the right kinds of thoughts in the right ways. So we really are glad that Noelle took the time to be with us, and her beautiful husband, Brick. It's so interesting, nature and brick. You need both because you build around it.
Wow.
It's all about that. And so we are here as souls sitting in our bodies. I believe that the energy of spirit is nature. And if the energy of spirit is happy and at peace with itself and is pure in heart, then you've got a beautiful garden of people in a room.
Nice.
Okay? So I'll let that go, and thank you all for coming out today, and enjoy your space and your time.
Well, I suppose what I'm going to do, Britt, is say hello and start by telling you thank you for assisting me in this, because I had books to bring and a lot of traffic to get through to get here this afternoon, and so thank you for all joining me. I forgot about rush hour traffic in DC. We're from California, so the rush hour traffic in California should have prepared me for this, but for some reason it didn't. But our taxi driver got us here, wove in and out of traffic. We didn't crash, and thank you. So what I was going to do is just talk a little bit about the book. And the book is entitled The Hummingbird That Answered My Heart's Calling. And this is a true journey, personal journey, that took place during the market crash of 2008. And I'm sure we all are familiar with what went on. For me, personally, at that time, I had just started my own company. I worked in corporate at Warner Brothers in California for a long time, and I realized I think I want to be my own boss. I want to take on this journey of entrepreneurship, and I think I'm going to do it now. So I saved a little money, quit the daytime 9 to 5, and a couple years prior, I had purchased a little condo for myself. I was newly single, and then the crash hit. And everybody up and down my street was losing their home. They were losing their jobs. Cars were suddenly disappearing from their driveways. And just overall, the energy, I could just feel this heavy, dark energy. And I started to take on that energy. Now, the interesting part of this book is I didn't actually experience the physical effects of the crash. In other words, I didn't lose my home. I managed to keep my mortgage afloat with the little money that I was bringing in, starting my business. I didn't lose my car. I had, a reliable little car for a while, and I didn't lose my car. And I did maintain a moderate client base that kept me afloat. But what happened is every day that I'd wake up, I was inundated with the what ifs. What if I do lose my home? What if I do lose my transportation? What if I do lose my job, my clients? What if I have to move back in with my parents at the age of 32 years old? So it was this sense of fear overwhelmed me to the point where I started to experience panic and anxiety attacks. And I don't know if anybody in this room has ever had a panic attack, but I had my first one in Las Vegas in a hotel room at 4 o'clock in the morning with 7 other girls sleeping. And I woke up and I thought I was having a cardiac arrest. My heart was beating out of my chest. I started sweating profusely. I couldn't breathe. I went into the bathroom and I'm looking at myself and I'm like pale white and I'm like, and I'm trying to catch my breath. And my mind was powerful enough to put me there, and thank God at that time my mind was powerful enough to get me out of that situation in Vegas, because the last thing I wanted to do was walk into a room of sleeping girls and say, hey, can someone take me to the ER? That'll really be a topper for our Vegas trip. So I worked through it, I breathed, I prayed, and I went through the process, and I went back and I laid down, and for the whole weekend, the rest of my entourage friends partied and had a great time, and I stayed in the hotel room because I was so incredibly fearful that I was going to experience this again somewhere else. So I didn't tell anybody about it. I went through, the weekend, I got home, and I could feel these surges every once in a while. I'd be behind the wheel, and I'd be driving, and I could feel it. And it's very physical. You can feel it coming up, and it's like, oh God, oh God. And if you allow it to take hold, you're suddenly in that place again. So I made the mistake several times of allowing this thing to just come up and overwhelm me. And I finally went to the ER because I thought something's got to be wrong with me. So I went to the ER. The ER doctor said, you're having a panic attack. It's common. We can prescribe some anti-anxiety medication. And I said, well, yeah, okay, I'm not ready for that. I'm going to go see a cardiologist because I'm a little bit neurotic. And so I went to a cardiologist. They did all of the tests. They said, you're fine. It was a panic attack. We can prescribe, anti-anxiety. And I said, I'm not ready for that right now. So I went home that afternoon and I said, okay, what do I know? Well, I know God. I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I know that I always have a resource in my prayer, although at the time I wasn't a practicing Catholic. I'm just kind of like someone that knows that there's a higher, I believe in all of the deities and the great teachers. So I just put God in this space and said, please help me. And one of the things that I decided to do every morning before I started work is I said, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go for a walk. And I'm going to breathe. And I'm just going to take in the natural world around me. Because I realized that when I would go through the attacks, breathing really helped me. But I also knew how much I loved to be outside. So every morning I would get up at 6 a.m. and I'd go for a walk and I would breathe. And I would look around and I would be like, wow, now that I've dedicated this time to enjoying the walk and not just having nature be this backdrop to my busy life, the trees look greener. Wow, the flowers are brighter. Interesting. The birds are singing louder and they're distinct. Like I hear this and then I hear a different one. And so I really started to enjoy it. And as I'd walk, I would pray, please help me through this. Whatever it is, just help me through it. And I promise I am willing to learn the lesson. I am open and receptive to understanding why this is happening to me. So I'd say about 2 weeks into my daily routine, I went out to my balcony. I took a break from work. I worked from home, so I sat in front of a computer. I'm a graphic designer. And I would go out and sit on my balcony and just take a breath, have some water, maybe a little lunch. And one afternoon, I looked over, and there was this little, that big, nest, I guess. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but it was the size of a walnut shell. And it was built on this branch, this pine tree branch that was hanging over the balcony. And I thought, wow, what is that? So I walked up to it, and there was nothing in there. And I sat back down on my glider, and I'm like, I wonder if a bird belongs to this. It's really small. I've never seen a nest this small, so what really could fit in here? And I thought, okay, I'm going to wait. I'm just going to sit here and wait and see what happens. And sure enough, this little hummingbird, which I had never seen a hummingbird up close. I had never seen a hummingbird in life. I had only seen pictures in passing. And this little hummingbird just zoomed into this nest, and she didn't even pay attention to me. I was here, and she was probably where you were. And she couldn't be bothered with me. She had all of these little things in her beak, and she had spider webs all in her chest, and she was taking them off of herself with her beak, and she was continuing to build this nest. And I was just like, oh my God, don't breathe. Just, what is that? Oh my God, don't breathe, don't breathe, don't breathe. And so I just sat still. And after she, placed all of these little things that she had gotten out in nature to finish her nest, then she settled into it. And then she looked at me. And it was really strange because I want to say, did she know I was there staring at her, holding my breath, not wanting to bug her? And just said, I can't be bothered with this. I'm very focused. Thank you very much. And then when she settled in, she said, okay, I can give you a moment of my time. But this is kind of the personality she had, and I appreciated it as time went on. So it doesn't really surprise me that she did it that way. So then she kind of, and they kind of do this when they get back in their nest. And then she just looked at me. And I was like, hi? And I remember saying out loud, it's nice to make your acquaintance. And then I kind of telepathically just said, I'm not here to bother you. I respect what you're doing here. I'm fascinated, but I'm just going to kind of let you do your thing. And so I sat there for a little bit, and in the book, I kind of described where as I sat there and I watched her looking at me, and she was close enough that we made eye contact, and she had these beautiful black onyx eyeballs. And I thought, this is going to be magic. This bird has chosen to nest on my balcony, and I'm going to watch her build her nest, have her egg. The egg's going to turn into a little nestling, and I'm going to watch this whole process. And by the way, is this the answer to my prayer? Is this the answer to my heart's calling of healing? Well, yeah, 3 months later, and into the process, it absolutely was. This journey that this bird took me on was one of the most profound experiences of my life, changed the trajectory of the work that I do, changed my perspective, because during the time of the crash, like most people, and it's very natural for the human brain to be so self-absorbed. You know, the ego just wants to say, oh my God, what does this mean for me? What does this mean? What's going to happen to me? What am I going to lose? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'll tell you it's a destructive thing. I'll tell you what it does is it feeds into this thing that fear is all there is, and then your body starts to respond physically to this fear. And she was this beautiful distraction that took me away from my self-absorption, that allowed me to relax and observe motherhood from a perspective that I had never thought in a million years I would look at and think. The tiniest bird, and hummingbirds they are the tiniest bird known to man, that this bird could have such a huge impact on me. And I would watch her and the way she would nurture her baby, and the way she would create a home for the baby, and the way she would encourage the baby. And once he got to be a teenager and was ready to be independent, she would encourage that. And these parallels between motherhood, human motherhood, and everything, all the other natural world around us, and this little teeny tiny bird was incredible. And I remember when she laid her egg, it was the size of a Tic Tac. And the only reason why the photography in here is really so sharp and vivid is because she was so close. And I would just, like when she wasn't around, I'd kind of peek in and look at the little egg, and it was like the size of my pinky nail, maybe even smaller. And hummingbirds usually lay 2 eggs. This hummingbird laid 1. So what was interesting about this is as the baby grew, it wasn't like there were 2 babies and her and me. For some reason, it being this triangle, me, mom, and baby, me, mom, and baby, there was such, we had so much to talk about, because it wasn't like she had all of these babies. She just had 1 to show me, and then her, and then me. And for 3 months, I watched her nurture her baby. I watched her raise the baby. And during those times, I had these aha moments of the connection that I had to this bird, the connection that this bird has to everything else around her. One of the things that I learned was this incredible thing in balance. I was out of balance when the market crash hit. That's why I spun into some physical ailment. But nature is balanced and perfect. Every time this bird went out to collect nectar for herself and to sustain her baby, she came back with a beak, bright as yellow, full of pollen. And every time she went from flower to flower, 100 of them a day. A hummingbird will visit at least 100 flowers a day, and they know exactly which flowers regenerate nectar at the exact time and go back to them right when they know they've regenerated the nectar. Every time she went to those flowers, she repollinated them, so she proliferated more growth, and in turn, she received the nectar. The balance that this bird showed me was she doesn't apologize for receiving. Human beings have a tendency to feel that if they receive, if they're open to receiving and they have too much, they feel either they need to apologize for it, that they feel bad for it, that they shouldn't have it, and we live in this space where we don't deserve to have the things that we want. And I don't mean just material things, that's included, but to be blissfully happy. We deserve to be blissfully happy. And so nature doesn't make any apologies for receiving, but at the same time, they always give something back. They're not martyrs. They don't say, well, here, take it all, and I'll leave with nothing, because that's how, that's how, thank you, that's how it needs to be for me to feel like I'm contributing. No, they give back and they say, here, take. I don't mind giving. There's more where that came from. And so this was a huge, huge lesson for me in being more in balance of giving and receiving, and not just of things, but giving of my energy. When you walk out in nature, when people walk down the street to go to work, how many times do you look up at a tree or a bird that's making a sound and stop and say, I acknowledge you. I see you. What a beautiful bird. What a beautiful tree. Thank you for the shade. Because by the way, when we plant a seed or plant a small tree and we say, here tree, we know this is what you do. You're supposed to grow and you're supposed to produce leaves and you're supposed to give us shade for our home. And guess what that tree says? Okay. That tree doesn't go, no, I'm not going to do that. And by the way, what are you going to do for me? For that's not. They give. And so I learned to give back, to appreciate the natural world around me in a way that I had never done before. Another great lesson that the hummingbird taught me was because I was living in the future during this market crash. It was all about, what if this happens next week? What if I lose my job? What if I go to my bank account tomorrow? And it was all about projecting into the future and then thinking about into the past. Well, they say the market crash of 1939 or whatever that was, this is the things that led up to it, and so you're living in this past, and what if I have to go back to that past and move in with my parents? And instead of thinking about right now, and when I looked back, right now, I was fine. I hadn't lost anything. In that moment of now, I was just fine. But it's like I wanted to self-fulfill this prophecy of doom and gloom. And what I learned about the hummingbird as I would watch her hover in front of my face, because we got to the point where she'd come up to me and she'd be like, so what's going on today? I'm just going to let you, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, Artemis. But when she would hover and still, if you've ever seen a hummingbird, they're moving, but they're perfectly still in time and space. And Eckhart Tolle, or Eckhart Tolle, however you all want to pronounce it. I never know which one is right, but I'm sure you've all heard of him. I remember one of the things when I read, because after this I started really getting into the things that I really wanted to learn about who we are spiritually. How I can connect to like a higher place on a regular basis so that I don't fall into that trap of losing who I really was. And I remember one of the things he said is there's no future, there's no past, there's only the infinite moment of now. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. That's true. I think we all would agree. If you're here, you know that we are only living in the moment of now infinitely. What the hummingbird taught, because one of the things that I do is in my regular blogs and through my photography is I associate the animal or whatever it is, that nature, the images I take, with their spiritual connection to us, with their symbolism. And one of the things that hummingbird is, what they symbolize is joy. Obviously, it's such an obvious thing. They just dart around so joyful. They're a little bit like protective and, they have their own little ways of making you think that they're fighting, but they're really not fighting. There's never been any scientific proof that that's fighting. Their symbolism is beauty. I mean, where do they get their food? From flowers. Flowers are beautiful. That is their only source of food, is the nectar of a flower. So they represent beauty, and they represent sweetness. The sweetness of life, because the only thing that sustains them is nectar. So, but I remember when she would hover in front of me, and I remember thinking, the infinite moment of now. And their wings don't flap up and down like a regular bird. Hummingbirds' wings, if you ever see them in slow motion, their wings do this, like a figure 8 turned sideways. And when she would hover in front of me, I would think, your wings are moving in the motion of infinity, the infinity sign, but you're in a perfect space of non-movement. You're in the infinite moment of now, hovering, and that was an aha moment that I thought, talk about animal symbolism. Talk about what everything, out there is trying to teach us. And if we get rid of them, if there's in any way we lose animals, nature, anything to our own human hand and they become extinct, not only are we losing the physical beauty of the nature and the animals around us, we're losing their energy, their symbolic energy that they bring to us and they teach us every single day, because we're not human nature by accident. We're just another aspect of nature, and everything out there that we see that nature has to offer, that they possess, we also possess. So we possess the ability to be joyful, to live around and surround us with beauty, to live a life of goodness and sweetness and nectar. And for the hummingbird, that was what this bird taught me. But then beyond that, the symbolism of everything else that I experienced after that was just like a constant growing and appreciation. And this bird and this experience changed my life. When she finally fledged, when she and her nestling finally took off one afternoon after 3 months of building a very strong bond, it was heartbreaking for me. And one of the things that happened, that when I meet her, because this happened in 2008, hummingbirds live on an average of 4 years. I know that Artemis and Baby, her nestling, whom I named Baby, and I know I keep calling it Baby, but that's the name of the baby, Baby. I know that they've passed on and they're in spirit now, but I do feel her around me. And I feel that someday, you know, when I cross, when they talk about the Rainbow Bridge and the animals that we've lost, you know, they talk about the Rainbow Bridge, that your animals, your loved ones that were like the four-leggeds or the birds or whatever, they'll greet you. And when you cross over, and they'll take you along with, you know, all of our human loved ones as well in spirit. I know she's going to be there. The day that she took off, I was sitting in the glider, and I would go out to my balcony after they left the nest. What these birds did, though, is the baby, once he fledged from the actual nest, he lived in the tree for a couple days. So I watched him, and in the book it explains all this with photographs. I watched when he started to flap his wings and he was ready to leave. And he took off, and I saw him fly just very briefly to a little branch in the same tree. And he sat there, and I'm sure he was like, what did I just do? And where's Mom? Did she see this? Did anybody see this? And I'm like, I did. Good boy. So, and that moment that he fledged, Artemis flew back to the nest. Probably about 5 minutes later, and her beak was full of pollen, and she lands at the edge of the nest, and she's looking down in the nest, and I actually captured the photo, because her face, when she looked and that baby was no longer in the nest, she wasn't sad like a human being. And that's, you know, we talk about anthropomorphizing our emotions on animals, you know. Oh, I sat there and I thought, oh my God, the empty nest syndrome. The empty nest syndrome, this is real, this is real. Oh my God, is she sad? Is she crying? Is she crying inside? I feel like I'm crying, you know. And really, I could see a change in her little face, like, oh, okay, he's not there anymore, but obviously this is natural and instinctual. And so she took off, and I could hear her like making this clicking sound, click, 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 click. And I could see the baby on the branch, and he's looking up like this, you know, and she's clicking, and her clicking sound was some kind of radar to him that said, oh, I see you. And he's saying, Mom, I'm right here. And she landed on the branch next to him, and I got a photograph of this as well. And she started feeding him side by side in the tree. And so for a couple days, that's how she fed him, because they never went back in the nest again. And so I would go out and I would see, you know, I'd see them kind of clicking around, and he'd kind of bebop from little branch to branch, and Artemis would take off and get nectar from somewhere else, and she'd always come back and make sure he was cool and everything was okay. So I knew to always look in the tree until the one afternoon that I went out, because because I couldn't wait to see these birds every day. And I went out to go, see what was going on, and they weren't there anymore. And I was heartbroken, and I cried, and I sat on that glider, and I was just like, oh my God, every morning I greeted these birds, and we had something, and every evening we watched the sun go down together, and now they're gone, and will I ever experience this again? And I'm there blubbering and crying, and all of a sudden she comes darting in, boom, and she starts hovering in front of my face. And I'm like, oh my God. And, and as soon as she got my attention, because I was a little bit beside myself, like, a little over dramatic, and she made herself very known. And as soon as I, Artemis, she darted up to the tip of the tree, to a very high branch, and I literally had to look at her like this. And she just, and I have that photograph too. She just looked around, not down at me, just around, like, this is great. This is how it should be. I felt this energy of, I have contributed, and the universe has given back to me. There was this equal exchange of this life that I created with my baby, and she just took in everything around her. The sky, it was late in the afternoon in the summer, so the sky was like this kind of cobalt blue, but it still had that glow of sun. So all she was, when I looked up at the tree, was like a silhouette, and she was so regal and majestic. And I just stared at her, and I can't explain it right now, because when I actually say it, it's still very emotional for me. So I encourage you to get the book and read the very last page. But basically, what I realized when she came back is she wanted to let me know that there was absolutely no reason for me to cry. There was absolutely no reason for me to be sad. That everything that took place was an answer for my healing, an answer for my ability to move on in life and to change my perspective on the natural world around me, to appreciate it in a way that I had never done before. And it is a healing agent in life. It is a healing property when we do this. And that, this was a gift to you. You were a gift to us. We exchanged this lovely energy and move on. We're going to go dance in the mid-afternoon sunbeams together, me and my baby, and so be it. We'll see you on the other side. And I don't think I ever saw her again, but that was a huge lesson for me, is also of letting go and not being so attached, which goes back to the beginning, where suddenly, the market crash hits, and you feel your body just going like this. Oh my God. And the attachment to everything that you feel like you're going to lose is all consuming. And even at the last interaction between me and this bird, she taught me non-attachment. Nothing is final. You can't be attached to anything, because there's no such thing, And so this was a life-changing thing for me. And since that time, like I said, the trajectory of my life's work has changed. I realize how important the pollinators are. Oh my gosh, this bird and the amount of pollen that she spread about every single day, that proliferated the growth of everything around me. And then I started to study the other pollinators, the honeybees in particular, and what's going on with colony collapse disorder. The butterflies are monarch butterflies. We have a crisis with the bees and the monarchs that migrate to Mexico every year. This last year in 2013, the migration of the monarch butterflies was the lowest it had been in 20 years. The honeybees are dying by the millions because of insecticides, the neonicotinoids that are being used by mass agriculture, and by the way, also available in every big box store and some nurseries that you walk into, the minute you grab Roundup, that's killing milkweed. Milkweed is the only thing that monarch butterflies live off of. As soon as you use Roundup, you're killing their food supply and they're not able to reproduce and they're dying off. The honeybees, if you use anything, I don't want to throw like names out, but your typical insecticides that you use, that you go and buy to spray from Bayer, Bayer products, Monsanto products. I mean, I hate to say it, I don't like to use names, but if you just do a little bit of research when you go in to buy these things, these neonics, the neonicotinoid insecticides are killing the bees. And if they're not killing the bees outright, what happens is it's a neuroactive insecticide. So slow, small doses over time, the bees start to lose their navigation ability. They start to lose their reproduction. They start to lose their ability to go back to the hive. This colony collapse disorder in 2006 came out of the UK, and they called it the vanishing bee syndrome, because really what would happen is the foraging bees would take off for the day, and they simply wouldn't return to the hive. And we're talking 60 to 80,000 bees in a hive in high season. And the foragers that go out and bring the food supply back are all dead somewhere out in the field. Or they come back to the hive and they feed the queen and they feed the larva and they feed the drones all of this pollen and nectar that they've collected that is poison, and then the hive dies off. So this is another huge, huge thing going on, and in fact legislation is now trying to be passed for this pollinator protection campaign. I don't know, there's some issues with the Environmental Protection Agency. They don't want to look into this until 2018, but by that time, if we lose our honeybees, and by the way, 1/3 of our food supply comes from the pollination of honeybees. 1 in 4 things that we touch is somehow related to the pollination of a honeybee. And so this is critical. We will lose our food supply. And when I say our food supply, we can always go and have the genetically modified organisms that are being introduced out there. And we can go shopping at our regular grocery store. And any nutritionist will say, if you want to stay healthy, you want to shop on the perimeter of the store. You don't ever want to shop down the center aisles. And I'm not saying that you can't do that for some things, but if you want to stay vital, you need to eat the fruits and the vegetables and the nuts and the grains. And those are all on the perimeter of the store. Well, if we lose our honeybees, that perimeter is no longer there. And we're subject to just buying the genetically modified foods, the processed foods, the cornstarches, and the things that, we're looking around us and seeing disease that is just showing up. Obesity in children now, type 2 diabetes in children now. So our bees are crucial, our butterflies are crucial, our bats. People have this thing about, you see these movies and we're somehow teaching our children that bats are like these blood-sucking vampires that, turn into carnivores and want to eat everybody up. But the thing about bats is they are also critical to our food supply. Bats pollinate around 500 different tropical fruits. One of the things that bats, if anybody in here loves their margaritas, if we lose our bats, we don't have tequila. I'm not saying that go out there and, but the agave plant is tequila. It's fermented. Agave is fermented and makes tequila. If we lose that, we don't have tequila. But also agave is an alternative sweetener that a lot of people are wanting to use for instead of table sugar. Bananas, mangoes, bats, we're losing our bats. People go into bat caves and set them on fire, killing thousands of roosting bats out of fear. But there's also some diseases and habitat destruction that we're all involved in, human beings. And so we have to look out for the bats. So our pollinators are huge in our food supply and our well-being. And so this is part of my work, is getting that, educating people, getting the word out, teaching people the importance of maintaining, a space where these animals can thrive and survive and nurture them and dispel the fear around a lot. I mean, obviously people aren't afraid of hummingbirds. people aren't afraid of butterflies, but they sure are afraid of bees, and rightly so. If you're allergic to bees, obviously you have something to fear. And they're afraid of bats because you think that you're going to get, bit and then have some horrible, what is that? What do bats give you? Rabies. Yeah, that's it. So anyways, it's just dispelling the fear and somehow getting the word out that, these are critical creatures in our environment. And it all began with this little hummingbird. So does anybody have any questions or any comments?
Sure. That's really funny that you say that about bees, because I used to be very afraid of them. I'd see them like, oh my gosh. But then one day I went over to my friend's house and her cousin was over, and he has a mom who she's just very into bees, and we were in a jacuzzi and the bees were all around because there's lots of flowers, and I'd be like swinging at the bees, and he'd be like, no, you have to talk to the bees. You have to say, go away, bee, or just something sweet, and it worked every single time. Mm-hmm. And it just is really powerful to know that we're all doing the same thing here. We're just living, and we don't have to be so mean to other creatures, other animals. Just kind of talk to them, and it works. Like the hummingbird communicating with you. It's just the same thing with the bees.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that it's very hard to, when I think about spiritual pollination, because that's kind of where I went, is like, okay, so I'm obviously not a pollinator where I'm going to go collect nectar or pollen and spread it around, but what I'd like to be is a spiritual pollinator. What I would like to be is someone that lives her truth. It is not always easy to be nice to human beings. I know this because we are all egoic, and I understand that. So people say, well, how can you be compassionate? How do I learn to be compassionate? People just make me so angry. And one of the things that helps me to be compassionate, like to just embed that, is every morning when I walk down to the gym at the end of my block, it's part of my homeowners association, I look down, and for some reason, the roly-poly bugs are always out, like early in the morning. They're like little worms, okay? So I think to myself, this is a very, very, very small little creature. In relation to me, it would be insignificant, right? And I keep my head down the whole time I'm walking down, and I make sure that I don't step on a roly-poly bug. I avoid and make sure that my actions are compassionate, that I am a conscientious appreciator, that little roly-poly bug is out for a walk just like I am. It is doing roly-poly bugging. So who am I to say, A, I'm just going to walk and not pay any attention, and B, oh, I stepped on you, no big deal, you're in my path. So this is one of the things that helps me every day to start off in that compassionate mode is the roly-poly bug. Down to the gym, make sure I don't get the roly-poly bug. Back up to my house, make sure I don't get the roly-poly bug. And I've even got my husband doing it. And, my husband's a 250-pound F-16 fighter pilot. How does this guy care about roly-poly bugs? But he does, because it's one of those things where it makes you feel good and it starts you off in a compassionate way that if you care enough about the littlest thing, you can care enough about everybody else around you. It's that spiritual pollination. It's that teeny tiny little effort that we make that is an invisible energy. Anybody else?
Good.
Thank you for the good words and the inspiration.
Sure.
I liked what you said, especially around at the end about how the system coached your life in your path. And, here we are in the nation's capital. I missed your introduction, so I'm not sure where you're from.
California.
Okay. I sense about the time. And so here we are, where the legislation is being, drafted and implemented. And what can we do in terms of this last law, the loss of these habitats of the pollinators? steps can we as individuals make?
Well, one of the first things, you can always, if you want to have your voice heard, you know who to talk to. All you have to do is Google the legislation that's going on right now, and there's a lot of petitions out there specifically for the honeybees, specifically for the monarch butterflies, because of these pesticides. These pesticides are approved by the Environmental Protection Agency. We need to be protecting. That's what their job is. But one of the things that we can do individually is, if you go to a nursery instead of the big box stores, because most of the time big box stores don't offer a lot of organic alternatives to gardening. But if you go to a nursery, you can talk to the people that work there. They're usually horticulturists, and they're passionate about what they do, and they are usually very familiar with colony collapse disorder, and they do have alternatives so they have alternative potting soils, they have alternative sprays for fungus, they have I went and bought for my roses 3 weeks ago, the aphids. So, we get these aphids and everybody's like, well, let me just go out and get some spray. The best organic insecticide for aphids are ladybugs. So I went and bought 1,500 ladybugs. And let me tell you how fun that was. Okay? They're just absolutely adorable. But they were in a little thing, and you just, when it's cooler, when it's a little bit cooler, you just let them out and sprinkle them around. One ladybug in her lifetime, or him, can eat 5,000 aphids in its year lifetime. So, great alternative. But like Captain Jack's, if you've ever heard of Captain Jack's, is a great alternative for just general pests. Copper spray is great for fungus. There are tons and tons of, praying mantises. A praying mantis will, any flying insects, but if you have hummingbird feeders, if you have hummingbirds in your yard, don't get praying mantises in your yard as an insecticide or a little flying bugicide, because they can actually kill a hummingbird. It's not pretty at all. So, but what we can do individually is take a little time. The problem is everybody lives in the space of convenience. Oh, look, Ralph's has an insecticide. I need that while I'm getting my groceries. That's easy. It's right there for me. But guess what? That insecticide is going to kill the bees. And it's not, it might kill, it will kill. Roundup. Oh, there's Roundup right there. It'll kill the butterflies. It's not, it might, it will. So there's something to be said for, there's a price to pay for convenience. If you really, really care and you want to make a difference, then go to a nursery and ask them about their organic products. And they absolutely work. It just takes you a little bit out of your way if you'd rather go to Home Depot because it's more convenient. But that's the question. Does it matter? Can it matter at this point? I don't think it can. Yes.
Hi, my name is Perry, by the way.
Hi, Perry.
I had a question. Going back to, you're in this state of anxiety, and you were saying you're picking up, even though you were okay, you were okay in the present moment. So you were picking up like the fears of people around you in your neighborhood, I imagine. So did you, here's my question is, did you then not associate with people who were in a very negative state? Did you try to, stick with the winners? Sometimes people say, you should hang around with positive people and avoid negative people. I mean, but then that's kind of excluding, I wonder, because that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, but the interesting thing is because I was new to the neighborhood, I didn't know any of my neighbors. I mean, I wasn't really familiar. So all I saw is, and by the way, a lot of people say, well, where did you live when you had this experience with a hummingbird? I live in the city. Did you live in some farm area where you would have access? No, I lived in a city with busy streets adjacent to me in a condo on the 3rd floor. So But I didn't know my neighbors because I was fairly new to the neighborhood. So I lived in a condo complex that was on a street that had homes, single family homes. So when I say that I was watching this, you know, I do understand that the banks had a lot to do with this, and the mortgage lenders, and the people that made the choices. So interesting enough, I would see people losing that boat that they bought, you know, with not the best intention. So suddenly the boat's gone, and then the Hummer's gone, and then the house has a foreclosure, and then over there, that house, oh my gosh, and weeds are growing up on their lawn because they just picked up and left, and it was just one after the other. So I didn't know them, but that was probably worse because I didn't get an opportunity to maybe bond or have a conversation or uplift one another. It was just like, I'd go out to my car and it's like, oh my God. And by the way, it was all part of the same homeowners association where I lived. So every time somebody lost their home, my HOA dues went up. And so I was like, oh my God, poor me. You know, another bill, can I afford it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I don't.
So, yeah, it wasn't so much, and I understand that energy thing. I might have felt a little bad, like, ooh, stay away, but I didn't even get that opportunity. I just said, oh, let me just take it all on.
Right.
Please, give me all this pain and suffering. I love it.
Yeah, but I guess, you know, I think also, so you create your own narratives, your own stories, which can be completely, is it true? You know, do you know if any of those scenarios are true? And then you create these worst case scenarios. Whereas maybe some of those people got big promotions and moved to another, you know, you never know, right?
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
I mean, the market's slowly creeping back.
Right.
Slowly. So, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hi.
Well, thank you for sharing, because recently I've become really drawn to nature as far as being connected to it. I was in the park, Wheaton Regional Park, which is not too far from here. And there was a tree that was really beautiful. I actually went up to the tree and like touched it and like said, "You're beautiful." Like, I don't know what's going on maybe in this technological age. For some reasons, like my spirit is just kind of like, I have to get outside, I have to have sun, I have to have air. Like if I see a bird that kind of gets kind of close to me or late, I get like obsessed with it. But I know you talked about hummingbirds and nature. Is there any other aspect of nature as far as what you're studying? I mean, are you into birds? Or are you just kind of, I mean, where are you on your spiritual journey as far as connecting to nature?
I got to a point where I would just get my camera because I would have these missed opportunities. I mean, I've had some really great experiences with foxes, with red-tailed hawks. If you go on my website, you can see, but basically I got to the point where I would have to take my camera because I would think, I can't believe I just missed this opportunity. Because here's the thing about nature, you can't fool it. We can fool people. We can walk into a room and meet someone firsthand, and if that person wears a good enough mask, they can fool you. And when I say fool you, I don't mean bad, but they may show you something that they're really not. Very intuitive people can read through that mask. They can tell, is this person who they're showing me they are? Maybe not. The thing about nature is you need to have, I believe this, a very open and authentic heart when you finally get to a point in your life when you say to nature, the natural world, I want to be an integral part of you. Speak in a language I can understand. And if you truly mean it from the bottom of your heart, nature will reveal itself to you in ways that you never would imagine, but you can't fake it. You can't walk out there and go, yeah, I totally want to be a part of this. Totally. And not stop, like what you said, and look at a tree and just be in a state of childlike awe. One of the things I learned to be is in a state of childlike awe again. And then suddenly, this stuff would just open up to me. And if I didn't have my camera, and that was the other lesson. Noelle, yes, what? Hello, it's right there. You've asked for it, and it's giving itself to you. Can you please take the photo? Because you know, that little beetle bug on that tree wants its picture taken and maybe a little story because beetles have symbolism. And that robin that's up in that, bush, that's all by itself, that's showing you its red breast, which the folklore of where robin got its red breast in the story of Jesus Christ and Jesus's blood and where robin came in is absolutely amazing and beautiful. But no one knows that. But when you say, "Who are you, Robin? Where do you come from?" Then it goes, "Well, first take my picture. Okay, there you have me. That's my good side. And then learn about me. And then teach other people about me so that when they see me in a different way. They see me with a different perspective and they appreciate me just a little bit more." And that's what's happened. That same thing, even with trees. There's some trees that you go by and it's like the Wizard of Oz. They're like throwing an apple at you going, "Hey, look at me. Look over here." You know what I mean? So open up to it and be super authentic, because nature knows when you're really being truthful and you really want to be a part of it and when you're just kind of not quite ready. Because it's a very tender thing, nature.
Okay. So I live down this way and I work in DC, so it takes me an hour because I don't drive Georgia Avenue because the traffic is crazy. So I take back roads, and I've worked there for 6 months now. So for some reason, and I'm very, very, since I've moved here, I'm from Connecticut originally, I've been very more in tune with who I am. And so I think naturally when you're more in tune with who you are, you're more in tune with your environment and everything that's spiritual and beautiful about this world. And even coming up today, I've driven up this road and down this road every single day. But it's like I see it with such a clarity. Like today, the clouds were phenomenal. I don't know if anybody saw them, but their shapes were so distinct, and it looked like you can see the world as a globe if you really truly look at it. So it's really cool. But so it's just really nice to hear this, because I don't think many people think like this. I think, it's like work. Okay, I'm driving off the traffic. Oh man, he cut me off. Oh. So it's like, it's really nice to just take it in. And today, although I didn't want to be late, I was like, it's just a nice ride. It's nice. I was like, all my windows were down. I was like, oh, the wind. It's just beautiful to just take it all
And it just makes you feel
yes,
good.
Like my heart, even talking about it, I feel it. So,
No, I absolutely agree. I'm there. I'm hearing what you're smoking or whatever. Yes.
I think it's really important that we start exposing our children when they're small. Because I have a 2-year-old grandson, and I love the moon.
Me too.
I love nature. I'm from New Mexico originally, and there's a lot of nature here,
Oh, yeah.
Hummingbirds and everything here. And like with my grandson, I'm already telling him about the moon. And in Spanish it's Luna, La Luna, because his dad speaks to him in Spanish. And the other day when I was visiting them in North Carolina, I went to pick him up, and he told me, Buena, because he calls me Buena, Luna, he got all excited. And I just think that, there's so much beauty surrounding us, and we need to start exposing it to our kids so that they can grow up, appreciating it.
I think that's going to be the critical, when we talk about critical mass, that's going to be the turn of the critical mass. That's where my work is very focused right now, because my next series of books are for children. And it's huge for me, because we have the opportunity and the gift to have an impact on children. When you hear someone say, "Oh, did you hear about that pelican that had its little neck sliced open?" And you hear a kid go, "Who cares? It's just a pelican." You're like, who are your parents? That scares me. That, and it's the little tiny things that we teach our children to appreciate the mystery and all of the guests. That's what I feel like I'm here. I'm a guest on this planet. And the fact that this daisy agrees to be a guest on this planet with me, that when I go by a bush of daisies and I see bees or butterflies or just a flower, and I think that just enriched that moment of time and space in my life. Thank you. You know, just thank you. That word in and of itself, have you guys ever heard of Dr. Emoto, the Japanese scientist that studied the molecular structure of water? Oh my gosh. Okay, this is like, so what he did is he got test tubes, he filled them with water, he taped certain words to them, then he put them in a freezer, froze the water, took them out, and tested the molecules of water under a dark field microscope, and based on what the word said. And basically what he was concluding is that words have an energetic signature associated with them. And guess what? Words are our language, and words come from thoughts, and our bodies are made up of 70% water. So imagine what our thoughts and our words do to the molecular structure of the water within our body. When he studied the crystals that formed based on the different words, all of the words that had high vibration, love, gratitude, thank you, peace, even words associated with certain people, Mother Teresa, when he photographed the crystals, they were so beautiful, and not one of them was the same. And then when he studied the crystals from words that were taped, that were hate and destructive words, not only were the crystals not formed in like unison, but the color of the water was very like dark and kind of murky. And so basically, like I said, he concluded that water it's viable in its molecular structure. You can pray over an ocean and it can change the structure. You can pray over a creek, any kind of body of water. Every single time I fill up my water jar, it has that, I wrote thank you. I mean, I write thank you on everything in my house, you know. And I just, because I know that that's important, I do. I write it on my egg cartons. Because, by the way, this is another part of spiritual pollination. There is a huge gap, a huge separation between the vegetarian and the meat eater. And it gets to the point where it creates a huge division. And that's the last thing we need. What we need is not to judge someone because they eat meat, and not to judge someone because they're vegetarian. What we need to do is realize that there is a food source that is provided to us, whether it be meat and someone decides to eat it, to be a respectful meat eater and to be a respectful vegetarian. Because people can say, I'm a vegetarian, and they get that plate of food in front of them, and there isn't a time where they just sit and they say thank you. No matter if it's meat or it's vegetables, say thank you to your plate of food before you take it and ingest it, because all of those vegetables are grown with water. They still have water in them. And all of that meat, and if you study Buddhism, they talk about suffering of the animal. If that animal has been through some kind of physical suffering, that suffering is associated in that meat still, okay? Some people want to believe that, others don't. That's really not the point here. The point is this animal gave of its life force for my meal. I am going to say thank you. I'm going to change the energy around this plate of food, not just for me, but so that I can honor the life force that gave me this meal. That is so important, and that is between A and C. So A is the meat eater, C is the vegetarian, there's the B. That is the bridge, and it's benevolence. It's just being benevolent to that plate of food, no matter if it's vegetarian or it's meat eating. We have to say thank you. And molecularly speaking, that meat has water in it still. That vegetable, that fruit, all has water. Change the molecular structure of it. Raise its vibration before you ingest it into your body. Very important. And teach our children.
I was recently a teacher for the last 5 years, and I just retired. But I did get a chance to go to the National Geographic Museum, And I noticed my kids, I have 3 children now, they're grown, but they know a lot about ecology and things like of that nature. And when you go to these museums, so if you're looking, like you talk about teach your children, take them to these museums. They have all these statistics, like the average North American uses 18,000 gallons of fresh water, puts out so many pounds of waste. It's startling, and it's all the environmental. So it's a great source. A lot of these museums have been ahead of the curve for a long time on that. And one last thing, there might be, Santos, do we have those cards where the peanut, I found this thing, the peanut characters, and they said, imagine if you're grateful for everything. So it's kind of like what you were saying. Imagine if you were. Maybe there's an extra card. See, yeah, I'll have to give you one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think our time's up. No? Yes, Antonia? What?
I have a personal question.
Uh-huh.
Where do you live in California?
Palos Verdes,
Where is that?
in the South Bay. So Hermosa, Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach. It's on the coast, so it's a little south of Redondo Beach. Yeah, it's south of the airport.
Which airport?
LAX.
I'm moving there this year.
Oh, you are? Where are you going?
No, but I was thinking North Hollywood, but I don't know if we need in traffic.
North Hollywood has a lot of traffic.
So where?
Yeah.
God, I don't know. California's traffic is rough. Are you working in North Hollywood?
No, this is really going to be just a very, very special evening. And, I was especially inspired by what you said about how nature is always authentic. And I think that's one of the reasons why nature is inspiring to us. And how we can, when we're in nature, we feel that connection to what is authentic within us and connection to a power greater than ourselves. We often forget the truth of us. We forget how beautiful each one of us is at our core. Each one of us is abundant with love. And there's a place within each of us that is supremely peaceful, that's overflowing with joy, that has all the wisdom that we really need. And there's a place within each of us that's untouched by any negativity. But we've lost our connection to that. And it sometimes can be very difficult for us to connect to that place within us. That beautiful place, that beautiful self. And when I'm in nature, it's easier. You feel that connection to what's beautiful within yourself. When you see the beauty of the trees, or even the beauty of a garden that you've grown yourself. You feel that connection. And so can we take a moment of silence and just a few minutes of meditation and maybe go to a place in nature that's been inspirational to us. So is meditation something new to everyone here? Or has everyone done some meditation? Or anybody this is something new to them? Yeah, so then we can give you a few tips then to start with. Often when we hear about meditation, we think of something mysterious, and people sitting in unusual positions and chanting terms that are foreign to us. But it really is just about turning our attention inward and choosing the thoughts that we have, and also observing the thoughts that we're having. So it isn't really mysterious. And you don't have to sit in any special position. There are, not with your legs crossed up. If you can do that, that's great. I can't. But it is important to sit comfortably, perhaps with your feet flat on the floor. Your back straight, that just allows everything to flow nicely. And our breath is always a nice gateway to turn our attention inward. Because if we follow our breath in, we're naturally bringing our attention inside. So let's all take a deep breath, nice deep breath. And I'm going to suggest one other thing to you too. And this may be counterintuitive to you. I'm going to suggest that you might try this with your eyes open. There are real benefits to learning to meditate with your eyes open. And the meditation that we teach here is an open-eyed style of meditation. The real benefit is that when you meditate with your eyes open, you can meditate almost anywhere. When you meditate with your eyes open, if you're meditating early in the morning, you're less likely to drift off to sleep. When you're meditating with your eyes open, you're giving to the world around you the experience of that meditation through your eyes. But so not to be distracted, it's nice to have something to focus on. And you could focus on this point of light here if you like, or if you're doing it at home, you could focus on a candle. Alright, so let's all take another deep breath. And let it out. And with each breath in, I feel my body being nourished, my soul being nourished. And with each breath out, I let out any negativity that I've been carrying. And so if we're holding any tension anywhere in our body, we can just let go of that now. Just relax your toes, your legs, your arms, your back, any tension in your shoulders or your neck. Just allow that to drift away. And now, take your attention to the center of your forehead. And visualize a tiny, tiny, tiny point of light resting there in the center of your forehead. Infinitesimally small, but brighter than the brightest star. That tiny point of light is the essence of you. It's what is true of you, what is eternal of you. And within that tiny point of light is everything beautiful about you. There is abundant love, real love. Love without any conditions. Love that just gives. And as that love gives to the world around us, we feel the bliss of that giving. And now visualize that light, a tiny point of light. Visualize the glow of that light spreading out into the room around us. That glow of the beauty that's you, touching every corner of the room, touching every soul. And as that light shines, we feel our connection to the source of everything that's beautiful in us. A divine source, an unlimited source. And through that source, we feel our connection to each other. Our connection to every living thing. Every tree, every flower. We can just hold that feeling and that connection. The glow of that connection. This is the real you, the authentic you. And as we bring our attention back to the room around us, we keep that glow with us. We keep that awareness of our authentic self, our beautiful self. And let that awareness be the foundation of our thinking. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. You know, we are all very powerful souls. Each one of us is a very powerful being. And sometimes we wonder how, even if we have some awareness of how powerful we really are, we struggle to use that power in a way that can bring benefit to the world around us. And for me, when I'm struggling with that, and I often do, I just have to remember, though, that if I just keep my thoughts based in what's beautiful within myself, if I keep my thoughts based in love, based in benevolence, based in peace, based in joy, then I really don't have to worry about it. Because whatever I do, whatever I say, whatever I think, will bring benefit, will serve the world around us, if it's based in that. And you know, Noelle, the beauty to me of nature too is that it reminds me always of her. And when I'm in nature, it's easy to make that connection to that beautiful side of ourselves. And so I want to thank you for being here today and reminding us of that connection and the wonderful, wonderful story of the little hummingbird and baby. You'll come back and visit us again.
Sure.
And I think Antonia is going to come up and tell you about the books and a few other things.
Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the program with our new good friend, Noelle. I hope she'll be stopping by to visit us when she comes back in the area again. So it's really good. Shortly, Noelle's going to do a book signing in the back, so she'll have her book there. And it has beautiful photography in it. So come by, speak with her, get a copy of the book, and look at the pictures. You'll just be amazed. Most of you on your seats have a card, a Who Am I card. Some of you that came in later may not have it, but we have some more in the reception area. And on the back, we have information about a free app that we offer called Pause for Peace. And I think a number of people, well, there's quite a few new people here, but quite a few people have downloaded already. We have nice meditations on there and some videos, and the daily radio show that Sister Jenna does, America Meditating, that's on there as well. And all that's available for free of charge. So you can just download that. And also, we have information about our Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, please stop by our page and like us to show your support. And you can also sign up on our website for a listing of upcoming events. Saturday, we have a workshop on dealing with conflict, and that one's at 1:30 to 3. And on June 3rd, we have a big program coming up that's going to be really nice with another special guest from the radio show, Reverend Ivy Hilton. And I don't know, you might have received information on that, but if not, look on the website. That's going to be a really good program. And she does a lot of work with Iyanla Vanzant from Fix My Life. And she's going to be here, so that'll be nice. And thank you again. And oh, one more thing. The Meditation Museum is a nonprofit organization, and we rely upon contributions to fund our operation. So if you'd like to contribute, there's two boxes out there, one in the reception area and one as you exit this door where you can make a contribution. And I thank you very much for coming. And again, stop by and see Noelle as you leave. Thank you. Absolutely. Good, good. No, we'll get it. Thank you.
Did you just bring those ones?
This one.